Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. And welcome to the third info session for the Master of Public Policy and Global Affairs program. Today's focus is going to be around the co-op program that we have, career paths, some skills, and professional development. My name is Kerry Ross, and I am the Co-op and Career Services Manager for the Master of Public Policy and Global Affairs program. I'm joined today by several of my program colleagues who will be helping to manage both our back end and the tech side, our Q&A and our chat feature. Before I get going, I would like to acknowledge that as a UBC event, we are situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. And we are very grateful and lucky to be here today. So just a couple of quick housekeeping type of points before we get going. As I mentioned, there is a Q&A and a chat, and we do ask that you put your questions into the Q&A and use that upvote feature to help us ensure that we can answer the questions that most of you or a lot of you might have. We will be putting in some information into the chat as we go along. And if we don't get to your question or your comment today, or if anything else comes up, you're absolutely welcome and encouraged to reach out to us. My colleagues here will be putting my email into the chat as we go along. And so I'm going to go through just a few slides now and talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that you would have when you're in the Master of Public Policy and Global Affairs program. And then a little bit later, we're going to turn it over to our fantastic alumni who we have joining today, Sanmini, Paige, and Simin. And they'll be introducing themselves a little bit more fully shortly. So in case this is your first info session, just a little bit about who we are at the program. So we are a full-time professional program that most people take 20 months to do, although there is an option to do it, an accelerated 16-month option. Our program provides multi and interdisciplinary policy analysis, design skills, communication skills, and as well as subject matter expertise in areas like development, global governance, security, climate change, environment, and more. And those specialties are developed throughout both your first year and the second year of your program into one of the three streams that we offer: development and social change, resources and energy and sustainability, global governance, and security. Sometimes we do get asked the question about joining or participating outside of that stream, and that is absolutely an option as well. You are able to You are able to take courses outside of those streams if you want to basically combine your own streams. So there is that flexibility to really focus on what you want to focus on in the program. Okay, I really like showing this graphic, even though it might look a little bit funny. It looks a little bit funny on my screen. It's a little bit stretched out. But I just wanted to just take a quick minute to go over this. And some of our alumni might recall me sharing this at the beginning of their program, actually. And I really like this graphic because it's you in the middle. And that's what you're doing in this program, is you're in the middle and you're developing yourself as a policy professional. So on the top, you'll see these are your experiential learning opportunities. These are things that bring together and integrate your career planning, the career services, the resources, as well as the opportunity to experience some of these things. So that could be through the co-op program, through an internship. There are mentorship opportunities, and as well, there is the Global Policy Project, or GP Squared as we call it. And that's essentially a capstone course. And I'm going to guess that our alumni today might speak a little bit to that. It's a really exciting experience in the second year of the program. On the bottom there, you see that's your academic foundation. Those are the courses that you take in the first year. That's your foundational courses. And then as you move into the second year, pardon me, as you move into the second year, you then start to specialize and either choose courses aligned with those streams, or as I mentioned, you create your own stream. But I really like it because this graphic, because it's you in the middle and you are working on both of these. But at the end of the day, we're wanting you and you're wanting you to emerge from the program as a policy professional. So just a little bit on professional development. And I know professional development and developing you as a policy professional are essentially the same, but I really like, and working with students and with our alumni as well, as thinking about it as developing you the person, you the employee, you the student. That's where we want to get to. So really being able to start with knowing your strengths, knowing your skills. We start right from almost the first day of the program, really delving into what it is that you're passionate about, what are your values, what aligns with you, where do you want to work, what do you want to learn, what problems do you want to solve in the world. So you get a lot of that, of course, through your rigorous academic program. And in addition to that, there are things like we've developed custom and curated resources and career development and career planning tools to help you figure this out at every stage of the journey. A lot of activities, a lot of the learning, we've actually brought into a 4-credit class within the first year of the program called PPGA 510 Professional Policy Practice. That class just wrapped up on Monday, actually, and it was a really, really exciting class. This term, for example, we talked a lot about bias and power, power dynamics in workplace, policy environments. We had 3 weeks of panelists from a mix of different careers from across the country, speaking to our students to offer advice and tips and share their own career journey. So this is the type of material that is to connect with you, to help you develop, to help you grow, and to help you think about the path that you want to go down. So as you might imagine, being at UBC, we're a very large institution with a lot of activities, a lot going on this campus. So you have access to that. You have access to what we do in the program here at the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs, and of course, those campus-wide events and opportunities. And you are very much encouraged throughout your program and as an alumni to come back and partake in these fantastic activities and to keep your network up. Speaking of networking, we also offer mentorship and networking training as activities so you feel more confident in your job search skills. Job search skills are paramount to you getting a job after graduation. And so one of the things we focus on in the program is helping to develop those skills of yours. One of the most important job search skills is networking. And some of you out there may be cringing a little at the idea of having to network and do that kind of thing. But I promise it's fun. I promise it is helpful and can certainly lead and connect you to and through doors that you didn't even know existed. So we work with you on that throughout your time in the program. And we also try to offer employer recruitment info sessions to try to help connect you to some of those opportunities that you might see and might want to pursue after graduation. So I put one slide in about the Arts Co-op program here at UBC. So it's the Faculty of Arts Co-op program. I'm not going to probably do it justice today in the short time that we have and be able to cover all of the wonderful benefits that the co-op program has. So if you do have specific questions, please ask them through the Q&A today. And of course, you're more than welcome to email me directly for any follow-up questions or to have a chat. So a co-op program is very similar to an internship. There is a bit of a difference. A co-op program at UBC, it has 3 main criteria. It must be paid, it must be full-time, and it must be meaningful. And those 3 criteria, of course, we all want paid and full-time is nice, but it's really that meaningful piece. That's actually really what we're wanting to focus on, because it's a meaningful experience that is going to help you develop that network, leverage that network, and grow and build your career, both throughout the second year of your program and of course after graduation. Also, being in a co-op program, you are in another program within your program. So that means that you have resources and you have support. You have access to unlimited career advising, support with your resumes, support with your cover letters, mock interviews, so interview preparation, as well as on-the-job support should you ever be having any challenge. And we do a site visit as well around the halfway mark to check in, to see how you're doing, to see how the work is going, and to see how that work is connecting to your career goals. What impact has that made on you? And again, there's that word network. Having a co-op experience, and you may hear a little bit about this later today from our alumni, but a co-op experience is a really awesome way to build your network. Maybe you already have one, but you want a new network, or you need to expand your network. And networking and having a network is something that is think of it as an evolving art. It is something that you will always want to work on, you'll always want to have, because it will come to benefit you at various stages of your life. So a little bit more insight in the type of co-op work. So this is most certainly not an exhaustive list, and they're not necessarily job titles, but these are some of the things that you might do and could do. So stakeholder engagement, certainly working on communication, and think about communication and think about research. Those are actually quite broad topics. So if you were to break that down into smaller topics, there's presentations and analysis and doing environmental scans and so much more that you could do in a co-op position. So here are some job titles. And admittedly, I always tell the co-op students to not really focus too much on the title itself. And I can offer that advice to you as well. A job title doesn't always or often really capture the essence of what that role is about. So it's always important to really look through the job description to really understand what it is that you would be doing. But here's an idea of some of what our students have done in the past. This is a word cloud. So the junior policy analyst is one of the more common job titles that our students have had. And just a quick note on the word junior, that is essentially from the federal government of Canada, and it does not indicate, it's just what the co-op students are called at that level. Some of the work that is done in these positions is really neat, can certainly be complex and challenging and keep you quite busy. And just to think about where those titles exist, where has that work been done? Some of that work has been done at Global Affairs Canada, the federal government of Canada, certainly places like Innovation, Science and Economic Development or Indigenous Services, Environment, Climate Change Canada. We've certainly also had people at the City of Richmond, here in British Columbia, the Conference Board of Canada, Vancouver Coastal Health, First Nations Health Authority, Hemera, which is an environmental consulting company, and many more. And a small but important note on other opportunities on campus, so non-co-op opportunities that are available to you as an MPPGA and a UBC student. There's one really cool program called the Sustainability Scholars Program, and that's paid research work for graduate students. They do hiring 2 or 3 times a year, can't quite remember, but they're online. I encourage you to check them out. That's one program. And we also have, at UBC, we have the Work Learn program. And this is a program that's open to all students, and it is also paid work. During the academic year, the limit of the number of hours you can work is 10. During the summer, you can work 20 hours a week. That is that 20 hours a week in the summer is something that you may want to think about. That's essentially a part-time job. And some students will think, I'm going to do a part-time job, i.e. that work learn job, and I will take some courses, or I'm going to work on my language skills, or maybe you're going to take a break to have work-life balance. That first summer in between your first and your second year is that is yours. That's where some of the flexibility in the program exists. And so you're encouraged to apply to and join the co-op program, absolutely. You're encouraged to take a sustainability scholars position or a work learn one, absolutely. You will be supported in whatever you decide to do. So if you decide that you need a break, you can certainly do that. As I'm embedded in the program, and I'm here to help the students in the program, and it is absolutely your choice what to do in between the 2 years. But there are a lot of opportunities, and there are a lot of opportunities to gain that network, develop the network, and to strengthen the skills and the tools that you'll need to be the policy professional after graduation. So this is just a quick slide on the Sustainability Scholars Program that I mentioned. It is, again, it's paid research work for graduate students. And you work with, it's a UBC program, but you do work with different clients around our region. So you could be working with a corporation or a city, or perhaps even somewhere here on UBC campus. So when you come back into the second year of the program after that summer, whatever you end up doing, a lot of the support is essentially the same. I am still here to help with your resumes. I am still here to help your interview preparation and the holy moly, I'm about to graduate. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? That's what myself and my colleagues are here to help you with. So we will help you with your application materials. We'll help work with you on obtaining a mentor or seeking out those mentoring conversations, those curiosity conversations that you might feel you need as you look towards your post MPPGA life. So of course, there would be continued professional development and you developing yourself as a professional. We also offer throughout the program conferences, workshops, and case competitions as well. And there again, in the second year is the Global Policy Project, or the GP Squared. And as I'm sure our alumni and others can speak to, there is a lot of skill development there as well. You get to practice a lot of what you've learned, you learn new skills, and you learn new things about yourself as a professional. So it is a busy yet fulsome and rewarding second year. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of sort of where things are at alumni career-wise, and in just a moment, couple of moments, we'll be turning it over to our wonderful alumni today. So we have a range, right? So if you look at the multicolored pie chart, there's a big range in sectors and where you can go with this degree. One of the really most, in my opinion, from my perspective, one of the most exciting things about the degree is how flexible you can make it. If you want to go into, policy communication, you can do that. If you want to go into, something analytical, you can do that. If you want stakeholder engagement, climate change, security, governance, working on issues of equity, working on issues of diversity and justice, you can do those things. You are in the driver of this degree, right? You're in the driver's seat. And so what that means is you're going to tell the degree what you want it to do for you, right? So there's the flexibility. So you want to grab the reins and think about this throughout your whole time in the program to help craft and plan and execute what works for you. And that comes right back to almost that very first day where I think about, like, what are you passionate about? What are your skills? What are your values? Where do you want to take all of that stuff about you, this emerging policy professional, and where do you want to place it? Where do you want to have an impact in the world? Knowing those things and working on them and building on them throughout the time in your program will set you up for success at the time of, or just before and at the time of graduation and beyond. So to just give a little bit more on alumni, similar to what we saw for co-op, here are some of the job titles. We do have others as well, but as you can imagine, we now have quite a few alumni with this program, so we're not able to give you the comprehensive list, but there is a lot of really exciting stuff in here. And as you can see, there are a lot of different job titles, right? Everything from market analyst to chief operations officer, project knowledge mobilizer, learning coordinator, sustainability scholar, and more. And so you might be thinking, where exactly are some of these folks working? And again, absolutely not an exhaustive list, but just enough to give you a sense, I hope. So we have people at Natural Resources Canada, Environment and Climate Change Canada, Global Affairs Canada, Intergovernmental Relations Secretariat, which sits in the Office of the Premier of British Columbia. We have folks at the Newmont Gold Corporation, TransLink, and many more organizations, companies, and governments, both here locally in the Vancouver area, Canada, and the rest of the world. So with that, I want to pause my segment here. I'll just do a quick check on the Q&A. We will be getting to some of the Q&A a little bit later. Just seeing if there's anything pressing I should answer right now. I just see one question on the co-op, and let me just get to that right now. The question is if co-op is different from the GP squared and when the student does co-op. So thank you for that great question. Just to clarify, it is definitely different than the Global Policy Project. The GP squared is an academic component of your program. It is, instead of writing a thesis, you do the capstone, the Global Policy Project. The co-op program is an option. It is an option that many people do choose. and it typically happens in the summer between your first and your second year. And they are 4 months. Sometimes they can be 8 months long. Okay, thank you. We'll come back to some of those questions shortly. So for now, I would like to turn the floor over to our wonderful alumni and colleagues, Sanmini, Paige, and Simin. So Sanmini, if I could I'll stop that screen share and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Hi, everyone. My name is Sanmini. I did my undergrad in political science in Montreal. Then I moved to Vancouver for school, obviously. The program overall was a great experience for me personally. I really enjoyed my co-op, and I also some of the courses were very helpful during my co-op and currently during my career. So I started, my favorite courses, I guess, were the stat courses and definitely GP squared, so the global policy project. So for me, one of the best things about the MPPGA program is that it sort of forces you to interact with all kinds of people from all sorts of backgrounds. So your classmates will be different than you. They might come from all over the world or from different provinces. They'll have different interests, of course, but the clients that you'll get to work with will also be significantly different and from diverse backgrounds. So for my GP squared, the global policy project, I got to go to India to work on land and water management policy, which was great because I worked with a range of people from village residents to government officials to policy scholars, people who were heads of NGOs, etc. I guess one of the key takeaways from that, for me personally, is that being able to manage interpersonal relationships while remaining professional and actually delivering quality work is a key skill. And I think the MPPGA program definitely is useful for that and gives you some key pointers to be able to practice that in the real world, if you will. So I graduated from this program in 2020. When I graduated, I had a contract with Vancouver Coastal Health, so VCH. I did my co-op with them in the summer, and after the summer, they hired me as a part-time policy consultant, and then later as a policy analyst, which was great because I was working on a year-long project. So that really worked out for me. Unfortunately, because of COVID and because VCH is a health authority, they had to pivot and focus on other priorities. So the project was kind of pushed to the side because it was like a policy project and not a definitely like directly related to health. So as of September 2020, I was unemployed until about November 2020, which was pretty rough because it was like the beginning of COVID and everything was so uncertain. So I was a bit scared. But to I guess solve that, I sort of developed like a networking strategy. Like Kerry mentioned before, it feels a bit daunting, like when you start networking and stuff, but it's super useful, and the program really does help with that. There's a few opportunities throughout the 2 years to practice networking and stuff, and that came in really handy for me. So while I was applying for government jobs, because I knew I wanted to work for the federal government, I was also leveraging my contacts to make sure that I knew of new positions that were opening, and I could get guidance and advice from my peers or people who are already working in the policy world, etc. So right now, so as of November 2020, I got a job. So I work for Service Canada as a business expertise consultant. My title doesn't really explain what my job is, like Kerry mentioned, but essentially I'm a program manager. I manage teams of 8 to 10 people on different projects in the region, so in Western Canada and the North as well. I guess you could say that my favorite part about my work is like the survey portion, so creating surveys, collecting data, and like actually telling a meaningful story with that work. Yeah, and I obviously got those skills from the program itself, as I mentioned. So although my work is not directly related to policy, I did get quite a few transferable skills from the program. First being, like I just mentioned, the survey design and analysis that came in really handy, but also the ability to meet tight deadlines and not feel overwhelmed and too stressed about it. I think Kerry said this as well, but the program is pretty intensive, so you really have to be on top of things, but those skills will carry out throughout your career, I think. And then of course, like the last thing that I would say about that is really the ability to interact with people. That interpersonal piece is super important. It's a very underrated skill, if you ask me. But coming out of school, it made a huge difference for me in being able to meet people, finding a job in the end, etc. if I can say a bit more about co-op, it was really a great opportunity for me because I got to work in a multidisciplinary team even before my global policy project. Because I did co-op, I already had that experience with me. So I was working with doctors, policy professionals, economists, policy scholars, etc., from all different backgrounds and different specializations. And so when I started my career, especially because I'm leading these teams of 8 to 10 people with different backgrounds, I kind of had the right inclinations because I did co-op and because I engaged in GP Squared during the program as well. If I can leave you with any final words, it's that it's okay if when you are in second year and you start applying for jobs, don't freak out. It's totally okay if you don't get the first job that you apply for, if you don't have the exact job that you want. What's important is really persevering, seeking answers, reaching out to people when you need, and also in the process of choosing both whether you're co-op or your your first job for your career. Yes, salary is important, but what's more important is working in a healthy work environment for me. You want to select I guess a job where your ideas and your opinions are respected and where you feel valued and your boundaries are respected as well. I know that I work in a team like that and it's made a huge difference for me. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and my experience with the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sanmini. That was absolutely fantastic. You've given great advice and a lot of great insight into the program and how that help prepare you for the world after, and especially during the COVID times. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Okay, well, and folks, please continue to put your questions into the Q&A, and we'll get to them in just a couple of minutes. So next, I would love to call on Paige. Gone away from my screen, but I'm sure you're there somewhere, Paige. There we are. So Paige, let me turn it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us your experience in the program and since you've graduated.
Thank you so much, Kerry. So welcome everyone. I know I can't see everyone's face, but I'm so happy that you've joined us today to talk a little bit more about the program. So my experience in the program, I went to McGill for undergrad and I graduated with my bachelor's in 2018, and I took a year to work between finishing my bachelor's and starting MPPGA. I was working at a law firm here in Washington, DC. And then I started the program in the fall of 2019. And I'm sure all of the alumni will speak to this. The first semester of the program is really challenging. Really, the entire program is very challenging, but that first semester where you're hitting the ground running and you're doing statistics and econ, it is quite challenging. But really gaining those skills right off the bat was so helpful. And I was terrified coming in because I don't have a very strong econ background. I had never done statistics before. And I was converted. I love statistics now. I had a great experience. And so moving into the spring of the program, that was when the pandemic started. And we were studying the pandemic in a classroom setting, and it just became more and more real. And I will say it was a very interesting time to be a policy student because the world was kind of our classroom at the time. So I was in the process of applying for co-op positions, but unfortunately I was not able to do a real designated co-op. I ended up doing I had a very, very cool opportunity where I worked as a research assistant for the United Way of the Lower Mainland. And I got that opportunity through networking. So as some of my fellow alumni have said, networking is key. I really leaned into my passions, which I have a passion for women's health, public health. So the project I was working on was about period poverty in BC. So I spoke to my professors in the program and I really leaned into what I was passionate about. And I was able to work on a project that was studying period poverty in the province. So I will say definitely get to know the professors in the program and really lean into what you're passionate about. I found that I started doing my best work when I really, really was honest with myself and was honest with my professors and said, this is what I want to do. And this is where I see myself going. And these are the skills that I want. So that led into second year and I did the full year GP Squared project. It was a unique experience because there was no international travel involved. So we developed really great skills, and Kerry actually gave me some great perspective where you just have to make the most of the situation, even if it's not exactly what you expected it to be. So I learned how to manage a project entirely online. I managed an international research project through Zoom. And the project that I was doing was for the Global Justice Center, which is headquartered in New York. And we were looking at post-disaster sexual and gender-based violence in Haiti. So kind of looking at the impact of climate change, but also just instability on cases of sexual violence in Haiti. So we learned some really great skills. We were conducting interviews with stakeholders through Zoom. We were gathering this data. We were analyzing this data. We were managing project workflows, communicating with the client, all of these great skills that I'm now using every day in my current role as a research assistant for, it's technically UBC. The professor I'm working for is on leave from UBC. She's actually at UCLA right now, but I'm using those skills almost every single day. So gathering the data, analyzing the data, communicating findings in a way that's really accessible to a broad audience, I think is something that all policy students and eventually policy professionals should be able to do. And I learned those skills. I could tell you exactly when I learned them in the program. So through Kai's class, through Ceci's class, all of those classes, we just learn those skills that I'm using every single day, and through GP Squared as well. So that's a little bit about my experience. I'm very happy to answer any questions that come up later. And I'm sure that my contact information will be shared. So please reach out if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paige. Appreciate that. And I can just add as well as that we have a fairly active student association sort of created and democratically elected by the student body. And Paige was our former president. So we're amongst good company. Okay, and last but absolutely certainly not least, I'm delighted to turn the floor over to our other alumni, Simin Yook. Simin, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Simin. I graduated from the MPPGA program in 2019, and I currently work as a trade commissioner at Global Affairs Canada, which is also known as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the federal government of Canada. I've been working with Global Affairs Canada for almost 4 years now, including my co-op through the MPPGA program. So I did my undergrad at University of Toronto. I graduated in 2012. And after graduating, I worked for one of the South Korean government organization located in Toronto called the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency for almost 4 years before joining the MPPGA. And this is where I gained my interest and built my career in international trade. I currently work in the Responsible Business Practices Division in the Policy Unit. And my main role consists of communicating policy pertaining to the responsible business conduct of Canadian companies operating abroad. I communicate this policy to colleagues within the federal government, as well as external stakeholders like NGOs, civil societies, industry associations, academics, etc. Another thing that I am responsible of is stakeholder engagement and coordination of consultations to develop Canadian policy on responsible business conduct of Canadian companies operating abroad. And we are currently in the process of getting the new strategy on responsible business conduct by the Minister of International Trade, which will be launched very soon. It is through the UBC MPPGA core program that I was able to put my foot into the federal government. It could have taken a very, very long time because it's really hard and very time consuming to get in the government. And it is through the MPPGA program that I took a short track to get in the government. So back in the days, the co-program director was also very helpful, and she provided one-on-one consulting sessions to help students find job opportunities suitable for each individual's interest and past experience, so that we could build a career as part of the MPPGA program. The co-op program provided not only one-on-one consulting sessions, but also provided other useful sessions such as networking sessions, sessions on how to refine and solidify our resume and cover letters, how to do job interviews, and most significantly offered mock interviews that was specifically for government interviews. So in between the first and the second year, I was really lucky and I got an opportunity to work for the Northeast Asia and Oceania division at Global First Canada. So for the summer, I moved to Ottawa with other students who also got their job in Ottawa. And so for 4 months, I worked as a junior political and commercial officer. And then by the end of the summer co-op, through networking, I got this very interesting opportunity to continue working for Global First Canada in the Vancouver Regional Office, which is located in downtown Vancouver. So I was given the opportunity to work and study full-time, which I wouldn't really recommend students doing it, but I still juggled work and study at the same time. And then by the end of the study, through networking again, I was able to secure a position with my current division. So courses offered by prestigious professors, the GP Score Project, and all other guest speaker sessions and networking sessions were super, super useful to build my career and academic expertise. But one of the things I would say that was most helpful for me to gain, that I gained through the MPPGA program, was the co-op program. So I would definitely encourage everyone joining MPPGA program to leverage their co-op opportunity to develop their career and build your own network.
Awesome. Thank you, Simin, and thank you to all of our alumni for taking the time out of your day today. I've worked with all of you. I've been, and I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself more fully, but I've been working at UBC for 13 years and in the program and with the program since it started. And so I worked with all of these 3 fantastic alumni, and it's just super duper exciting to hear from you and to see all of the wonderful things that you're doing now. So thank you for that. So now is our question and answer time. So for folks on the line joining us, please think about additional questions that you have and pop them in the Q&A. I'm going to turn to the Q&A now and see where, okay, we've got some questions here. So the question is regarding the difference, if any, between the Global Policy Project in MPPGA and the Capstone Project in other institutions. Other institutions, let me take a stab at that one. It's sort of hard to know about every single other institution, but my understanding is that ours is maybe a little bit more unique because the Global Policy Project is a real life problem with a real life client. And the global part of it, and I'm already forgetting which one of our alumni had mentioned, but I mean, if you're working with someone in New York, that's a 3-hour time difference. You're working on their time, they're the client. Or if it's in India, or if it's in Peru, or if it's in Ghana, or Ethiopia, or all of these other, China, Singapore, all of these other places. So that's where those clients are. So it's very much a real life policy problem with the real life client. And I think that is one of the distinguishing features. I'm not trying to claim that other programs don't do that. I'm not aware of any, but I do think that that is one of the more sort of distinguishing features of that program. Okay, and so moving on, international co-op placement. It is possible, if I can take the joy of saying, let's ignore COVID for just a second. Yes, international co-op placements are possible. They're not frequent. Co-op generally ends up being within the country, basically within the border, but it does within our borders. But it doesn't mean that an international co-op placement isn't possible. We have had, I think, 1 or 2 in the past. I know we've had one in Hong Kong, for example. So certainly not the majority, but it is certainly a possibility. Thank you for that question as well. So I'm just scanning down here to see. Okay. Okay, just, oh, sorry. Okay, so the career outlook after graduation, is that any different for international students? I think it probably is. It's a little bit hard to say specifically because some students, like one of the things in this program is diversity in every sense of the word, including what people want to do when they come in versus what they want to do when they come out of the program, where they want that to be. You know, and a lot of those different types of jobs, different problems they want to solve. So and sometimes people's citizenship changes as well. So it's perhaps different in that sense, but overall, like some of those job titles and employers, that was including international students as well. Maybe this is a question that I could toss over to one of our alumni. So there's a specific question about the second year options. So thinking about exchange, and I can't recall if any of you did exchange. I don't think so, but a semester abroad or exchange, and the global policy project, like, are they mutually exclusive? So we know that there is an option for the full year GP squared, and that may, hopefully soon, include international travel. And I know that if you do an exchange, you can then do your domestic no travel GP squared. But maybe I could toss it over to the any of your alums for your thoughts. If you're thinking, if you rewind back and you were considering exchange, or you're considering the domestic GP squared versus the international one, do you have any thoughts or comments to share there?
I mean, I personally didn't do the international exchange program, but I have had a few friends who did it, and I know that they've had a great experience. Some of my friends were in Germany and Singapore and Paris, I think, but they ended up doing the local GP score project. So I can't really speak on behalf of themselves, but I know that they've had a great experience doing the exchange and doing the local GP score project.
Awesome, thank you. Go for it, Sanmini. Yeah, absolutely.
It's similar to Simin. Actually, two of my friends from that year went to Germany. They had a really good time too. I think it doesn't matter whether your GP squared is local or international. The skills will be transferable regardless. What matters is like your interest in the project itself and where you want to go next. Like if you're someone who wants to live abroad and experience a different way of being like a master's student, then go abroad and do a local one. But if you want to work with an international client, it might make more sense to take the international GP squared. Thanks.
Fantastic, super good advice. Thank you both. So just back to the questions to see, let me jump in on one. So we've been asked if there are any statistics available about postgraduate earnings. From specifically our, like the work that we do, no, I don't have that, but what I would recommend or encourage you to do as an example, obviously this does not speak to all careers, but you could always have a look at the Treasury Board Secretariat, so that's the TBS of the Federal Government of Canada. So it's a very transparent pay scale. And so those pay scales are related to both competencies and the different areas of focus of work within the government. A lot of our students or graduates will go into the EC category, and that's more around like think social sciences basically. So it's going into that type of work, so policy work and everything. And so you could, and I think it's around EC4, maybe EC5, and of course it's going to depend a little bit on the job itself and the experience. But that gives you a sense of what the government pays, and a lot of people do want to go into the public sector. But there's a whole competency and pay scale there that will give you a bit of a sense of what they pay. So you could look for around an EC4 or EC5. And then I would encourage you to look in a similar way. So if you're from a different province or a different country or city, your public sectors are going to have that pay information. So I would encourage you to have a look there. In terms of then more specifically in private or nonprofit, that's where I would say there's probably a bigger range. So of course you're always encouraged to check with a specific employer and job description. But I would use as an example the federal government of Canada and around that EC4, EC5 scale to give yourself a bit of a sense. And I see some nods from Simin there, who's worked for the federal government, Sanmini as well. So that's that one. Okay, let me turn this one over to our alumni. Do you have any advice for the application process? It's a great question.
Sorry, for the
to get into the program, yeah, for MPPGA. I'm sorry, Simin, good point. Yes, I'm pretty sure the question is around for the your advice to them as prospective students.
I would say think about it try and figure out why you care about policy, like as a starting point. What about policy that you're interested in, where you want to go, and where you are right now. So like, my name is Sanmini, I'm interested in this. I can't because of this, because I don't know, some personal, not too much of a personal story, but a bit of background as to why you have that specific passion. And even if you don't have a passion, it's okay to not have a passion about something. But what is the driving force behind your interest in policy? And once you have that degree, what are you going to do with your passion, the skills you learned? Where are you going to take that the next 5 years or 10 years? What's like your big story, if that makes any sense?
I would add to that, really think about why the MPPGA program is right for you, and speak directly to that. And you can have a look on the website. There are lots of resources there that talk about the courses, and we'll show you. I think that most of the recent GP Squared projects are archived on the website, so you can have a look at those, and you can really speak to, so you can say something like, I had this experience in my career or my undergrad work that directly relates to something within the MPPGA program. And, using those skills, I see myself going here. So really tell your story and talk about why the MPPGA program is right for you. I remember naming specific professors that I was interested in working with, or specific programs. So be as specific as possible and make sure you start them early. And I had an issue meeting that deadline. So start early and submit, with a couple days of padding.
Super great advice from both of you. Thank you for that. Okay, let's see what else we've got here in our question. And we do have just a few more minutes, so I'd encourage those of you who are still with us to add your question. Okay, I see a question that's just popped up at the bottom specifically for you, Paige. So let me read that out, and then we'll come back to the other questions if we have time. A question for Paige. How was the program influential for you in pursuing a social policy profile, like i.e. after disaster effects, as you alluded to?
Sure. So I was in the stream 1 of the program, so development and social change. And some of those courses that I took really positioned me well for that work. And the work that I'm currently doing, I realized that I didn't touch on it very much, but some of the work that I'm doing as a research assistant, I'm working on issues relating to gender. So gender quotas, women's health projects, vaccine hesitancy, all of these topics that I'm working on kind of relate to social development. So I would say that the courses that I took as part of Stream 1, so I took some great classes with Andrea Reimer. I took some great courses with Erin Baines on transitional justice and women, peace, and security. So I took those skills directly from the classroom into the work that I'm doing, and also from I call it my co-op. It wasn't technically a co-op, but my volunteering work for United Way. Just gaining those skills and learning how to deal with the subject matter and just the sensitive nature of those topics, I learned through Erin Baines' course, and also just leaning on my supervisors and my mentors in the program. The professor I'm currently working for was one of my professors, so I really lean on her for support. So I really can't stress enough just the networking aspect and leaning on your peers in the program. And if, don't be afraid to reach out if you have questions or you need support, because that's what we're all here for. Everyone wants to see you succeed, and all of the, your peers and the administrators do. So always just reach out.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Paige. So I see we just have kind of a few minutes left. I know we started just a smidge late. Let me just see if I can knock off very quickly a couple of the sort of more general questions. How flexible is GP squared? Is it possible to do major paper? No, not as far as I am aware. GP squared is a required component of the program. So you could consider that as a requirement of the program. Is there any international exposure during the program? If I can wave my wand and say COVID doesn't exist, then yes, there is an international exposure where you go and travel to that country for your client if you're in the international GP squared. But even, you know, the reality of COVID, and as Paige mentioned, that was done all online, but those are still international clients. That's still an international network you're building. Now, of course, more generally or more broadly at UBC, of course, we have international speakers and you have that sort of exposure. So that is a bit of that there. Options to work on campus. There are some for sure. Work-Learn program, as I mentioned, Sustainability Scholars program, as I mentioned. And then more generally, there's, you know, there would be other positions that would probably be less relevant, like, you know, working in coffee shops or something like that. In terms of contact information, I think folks are on the call here are welcome to email us at the program or me directly, and then I can connect you. We can connect you separately with any of our alumni here today. So 2 questions, one for everybody and one for Paige. Paige, one for you is if you could speak a little to your experience in the Students Association. And then for everybody, we'd be all curious to hear your thoughts on what kind of work experience you had when you applied for the program. So like more professional, relevant experience. So I know we heard from Simin on that. So perhaps we'll go back to Paige and then Sanmini if you've got anything to add on that.
Sure, I can answer both of those in one go. I had a great experience in Student Association. I was part of Student Association at McGill as well. So I was eager to get involved when I got to UBC. So in my first year, I applied to be the Vice President of Professional Events. So I was planning professional events, networking events in first year. And obviously with the added challenge of COVID moving everything online, that we were right on the frontier of that. And then the second year of the program, I was interested in leading the Student Association through a really challenging time, the program being entirely online. So I ran for president and it was a fantastic experience. I highly recommend that you get involved. You can get involved starting in first year. And I believe that there probably will be some specific info sessions relating to Student Association. So please look out for those, but I cannot speak highly enough about it. And in terms of work experience coming into the program, I worked for 1 year between undergrad and grad school as a legal resource assistant at a big law firm here in Washington, DC. And I gained some really great administrative skills. I got my Excel skills honed working in that field, and just some great foundational skills that I brought into the program. So that was just my experience.
Sanmini or Simin, I know Simin, we had heard from you about working from the for 4 years at the Korea investment promotion place.
Yes,
I'm sorry, I know that's
promotion agency.
I was close.
Yes.
So thank you for that. And so just as a reminder to the folks who are interested in that answer, yeah, Simin did work for 4 years. And I'm just jumping in in the essence of time. Sanmini, did you have anything you wanted to jump in with on that question?
Yeah, my 2 most relevant job experiences right before the program, I was like a policy research assistant. So I went to Concordia University, also in Montreal. Yeah, and so I got to work. I was helping shape policy courses, but also doing research for 3 different professors, 2 in Montreal and 1 at the University of Ottawa U. And then before that, a year or 2 or and a half before that, I worked at the UN as an intern in New York. That one was helpful because of like learning how to write briefs and reports like very concisely and shortly, and being able to communicate information effectively. And of course, the research stuff, I got to like take deep dives into like how to do policy research and all that stuff. So the combination of both was very useful to apply.
Awesome, thank you. And I see there's just one question here, but it's going to be answered by our colleague. Oh, one last question. I'm sorry, I'm probably not going to say your name right. Rosh?
Rosh?
Let's take that question. It's a really great question. So our colleagues here, Hui and Ewan from our program, if you could email us and continue this conversation around quantitative backgrounds and completing coursework, that would be great. Let's take that one into the inbox, so to speak. And with that, I would like to thank everybody for joining today. We really appreciate your interest in the MPPGA program. And I would, of course, like to thank my colleagues who are on the call today as well, helping to support all of this from behind the scenes. And we especially have my colleague, our colleague Victoria here today, and she's a recruitment specialist for the MPPGA program. So you're welcome and encouraged to reach out to any of us at any time for any of your questions, and we'll do the best we can to help support you. And we look forward to seeing your applications. And I'm deeply grateful, and thank you so much, Simin, Paige, and Sanmini. It was so lovely to see you all again. I worked with all of you at various stages in your MPPGA journey, and we really appreciate the time and the fantastic advice and insight that you shared with us today. So thank you very much, everybody. It's goodbye from sunny Vancouver, and that's not something I get to say in December very often. So I wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.